So how are you, man? You feeling good? You doing all right?
Yeah, I'm doing very well, man. I'm just a bit tired. I had a tour in one of our provinces here in South Africa. I don't know if you call them states on your end.
Yeah. I mean, we got over here. We got states. I think, for you guys, it's
it's a province. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. So I had a tour there with like about 9 shows this weekend.
Wow.
So I just got home. Yeah.
Man, that's so crazy to hear about, because from my perspective in the States right now, I mean, nobody's touring, nobody's playing shows, with the pandemic, everything's been so shut down. How has it been over there?
I mean, South Africa is a very strange and interesting place. For us here in South Africa, we still mid-pandemic, but I mean, we're on level 1 now, where restaurants and bars are allowed to operate. So those are sort of like our gigs, where people turn the restaurants into sort of like a clubbish type of place. And then obviously they open it up so that it caters for more people. Our numbers are not as crazy as the other parts of the world, mainly because we are in our summer season now. So I think maybe that's why,
Right. Yeah. But people can be outside.
Yeah.
Well, how have the shows been, man? I mean, because for a while, everything was shut down kind of everywhere, right? Like for a while, I have to imagine you weren't doing shows.
I mean, now people are just happy to be out and to be with their friends and have fun, but it's not the same. There are no festivals that are going on. The only big festivals that are happening are illegal ones, which I think people should not be endorsing. Yeah. But even during lockdown, for me, it was kind of a very fun time, because I had started a concept where I had a show on TV, which people could watch from home. It was a 6-hour show from 6 p.m. till midnight, where I had different DJs from here in South Africa.
That's really cool.
Entertain people from their homes. So it was quite busy for me, but we did it.
Wow, man. And I mean, that makes me think, I know you've been doing a bunch of live streams as well, from some really interesting locations, but then to actually take the next step and to put it on TV for people, I hadn't heard about that, man. I mean, how did you even pull that off?
I mean, when lockdown hit us, it was a time where I had to think on my feet, on my toes, and I came up with this concept where it started online. I called it the quarantine online party, where I had 5 of my DJ friends, and we each played 1 hour each, and we all streamed on our Facebook pages. That got so much traction here in South Africa, so much that we were approached by one of the paid TV stations here. And then I went in there, we negotiated, and I got the deal, and we went on for like about 3 months. And it went very well, man, I would lie. And for the fact that we could pay artists and DJs in a time where their income was sort of like cut completely, for me was even more of a blessing.
Yeah. Is working on TV and being a public figure sort of in that way, is that something you have experience with, or was this sort of your first time dipping into that?
This was literally me dipping into the deep end, but I had a dope team, I had a dope team that was working with me, and we really pulled it off quite nicely.
That's great, man. Well, talk a little bit about the locations you were doing these live streams from, because I was reading up on it. I saw that you did a live stream from the island where Nelson Mandela was imprisoned, which the footage from that is really powerful, and I think is the first time sort of any musician has done something like that there. Is that right?
Yeah, man. I think for me, it was more about how do we entertain the people at home as much as we can, because sitting at home for even a week is just too much, especially if we are people that constantly are out there in contact with people. And I just thought, let me bring entertainment to people, partner up with a place like with a TV station like MTV Base, but also have this thing stream live on the Mixmag, Facebook and my online platforms. For me, it played its part in what I do during the year, which is I host my own festivals. I have a festival called Shimza's One Man Show, which was supposed to happen in June again because I've got 2 a year, and because we were on lockdown, I was like, let me do this festival at iconic places that really showcase the beauty of our history as South Africa, and also educate people about where we come from as a country, and with that, man, I came up with the concept to play there. It took us a while to get the permission to do that because it's a very sentimental place in our history. And we got the approvals because not only did we do it just for fun and just to say we did it, we were also raising money for COVID affected families in Cape Town, and the proceeds of that money went to families down there to give them food parcels and stuff, So I think it was beyond just the music. It was educating people about our history, and also giving back to the community.
That's beautiful, man. I mean, when you were there, what did it feel like to be in a place with such a heavy history and then to try to sort of flip that energy?
I mean, bro, like when you hear about these things from afar, you're like, oh, okay, they were there, it was cool, whatever,
Yeah.
But then when you walk into that that when you actually dock on that island and you see the conditions in which people lived in around that time, and only because they were fighting for the freedom of our country, you sort of appreciate the efforts that they put in to get us liberated like we are right now, and I feel like the young people of South Africa sort of forget about that, and it's up to us, people with influence, to actually say, guys, we have a strong history and you need to actually make use of the freedom that you have now, because people fought for you so much for you to be as free as you are to do whatever you want to do right now, So being there for me and playing music on the island was sort of like saying, I'm recreating the past that was so hurtful into a more positive message, and also educating people about our history in a way that interests them, which is through music, So the statement was quite bold, and I'm happy I did it because more people want to know about the island.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, it's a place I've read about, certainly. And obviously, Nelson Mandela is a towering figure in history. But I don't think I had ever actually, seen the island till I saw that live stream of yours, and just seeing it and having a physical location. I mean, that really made it more powerful for me, even though, I thought I knew about it, right? But then exactly like you said, once you realize that this is a real place where real people were in prison, I mean, yeah, it was really powerful, man. I thought that was really nice.
Thank you so much, man.
Maybe that's a good way to talk a little bit more about your past and kind of how you started on this path. You were born and raised in a place called Tembisa. Is that right?
Yeah. Tembisa is like is a township, it's a township, where I think during our history, the white popularity sort of moved Black people into smaller, cramped spaces, and we have different townships in South Africa, and I think that's where I'm from. That's where I was born. That's where my parents lived and my grandparents lived, and I feel like me being raised in such a township for me, and the type of person that I am right now, because I've learned so much from my surroundings and what I've been exposed to, and also from the music side of things. When you live in a place where we're all friends and your neighbor is just as good as your family. The exposure that I got from different personalities and different backgrounds from people is something that really helped me grow the type of person that I am right now. And the support that I got when I started DJing was predominantly from there, and I took that and built that as my foundation to be where I am today.
So, yeah, that's really interesting. So, I mean, when you were a kid growing up there, what kind of music was around you? What were you hearing? Whether it's something your parents were playing at home or something your neighbors would play, or just, even something that was on the radio. Like, what were the sounds you were kind of taking in at that time?
I mean, obviously my mom and my oldest brother were listening to like the likes of Womack and Womack, and they were listening to Tensity, and they were listening to like all these big records that were big worldwide, like your Michael Jacksons, all of that, the OJs. I think, and then also my brother that comes before me in my family, he was more younger, and he was listening to more of the house music that was played down there around that time. And also we had a radio station called YFM that started around 1997. And what that did for us was, it was a bunch of guys that grew up in the townships that opened up a youth radio station that had a youth orientated strategy, where they were playing Kwaito music. They were playing a lot of international house music from like your Louis Vegas, your Frankie Knuckles,
yeah.
All of those pioneers of house, and that's how we were exposed to what the world was musically, and that's why if you can look at our history in music, our influence was big in the scene of like your Louis Vegas, your Frankie Knuckles, your Quentin Harris's around the 2000s. And that's solely because of the exposure that the radio station gave that music, and I think the influence that we got from that music was quite dope, because the music that's coming from South Africa now, as much as it was inspired by some of those records, the quality is quite dope.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's interesting to hear you talk about the history there, because I remember, in the late 90s, the early 2000s, there was Afro house, right? And I'm using like quotation marks, because what it used to mean, Afro house, as it basically just meant that somebody was sampling African music,
African beats,
or that, maybe they used some African rhythms in their production, but it almost never meant music made by Africans. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's interesting now that it's come this far, and your sound. I've seen you call it Afro-Tech or Afro house. And for you, when you say those terms, what does that mean to you? What is that sound? Do you define it in any specific way?
It's music, man. It's music that now we can't even say comes from Africa. It's music that's made globally, with African elements that are incorporated into what's big in the underground scene all over the world, which is tech house. So we taking those tech house elements and engraving them into our Afro house sound, and we're creating this new genre called Afro-Tech, which won't be too different to what the underground DJs are playing, like your Solomons or your Lucianos, but it will have an African groove to it, which is something that's quite new to a lot of people who have been listening to tech house from long ago, and even the artists and DJs that play the music. It's a different taste to what they're used to, and we're hoping that as much music that we can put out there, their palette will start getting the music, and we'll start getting them playing the music. And it's something that you are seeing happening now, like the likes of your Damien Lazarus is playing a lot of our music. Solomon plays a lot of our music. Luciano is signing a lot of my music. That
I saw that,
is that sound, So I feel like slowly we're getting there. I look at the reviews that we got for my next release, which is out next week, this Friday actually. And the reviews are quite dope. You have the likes of Blondish saying they dig the music. Damien, like it's quite dope. I won't lie, man. And I feel like great. We're getting there. Yeah,
that's good, man. I mean, it's crazy to me how long it's taken, because like you were saying, house music in South Africa, I mean, you were hearing it as a kid. It was, it had a level of popularity there. And it's crazy to me that it's taken this long for homegrown artists from South Africa to actually start getting out there. It seems like something that should have happened a long time ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think the biggest problem about exporting artists and music from South Africa is that we didn't understand how the world works. We didn't understand that you'd have to have agents in different places. You'd have to have a booking agent in this place, and you have to have a management company that's concentrating on your brand and positioning, and we didn't understand that you have to have a PR agency that runs all your other stuff.
Right.
For us, it was like, yeah, I have this big song. It's in the streets. People love it. Let's go.
Right.
But as you learn, man, and this is something that I've experienced firsthand, where I was like, no, I'm doing all this music, and I'm playing in good places around Europe. I'm getting a gig here and there, but I'm not really getting where I want to be, until I got people that are in that scene and that understand it. And they were like, bro, you can be called to Ibiza once or twice to open for Luciano. Good. They recognized you, but how do you take that and move forward with it? You need a team that is going to properly channel you. And I think a lot of South African artists don't have that, and they don't have the not the expectations, like they don't have the experience and people that are going to tell them how things are done, So I think as one of us go in, they learn, they teach the rest, it's going to obviously grow bigger and bigger, because we, like myself, I look at what Black Coffee is doing,
right,
because he's the biggest export from where I come from, and I'm like, he's doing things so well and so calculated, and it's because he has a team behind him that understands the vision and the placement that they want to put him in, So having a team is something that we've been struggling with, but slowly we're getting into it.
That's great, man. And yeah, I want to eventually sort of talk about how you put that team together and how you did that for yourself. But to take it even a little further back from there, when did you start DJing? How old were you, and how did you come to that?
I started DJing, I think I was like 13 or 14 years. I had a friend called DJ Komza who has now is late. I was going to school because I loved music so much. I could hear, man, from outside his house that there was someone like literally mixing in the garage, and I stood outside and I was just listening to all of this music, good music that he was playing. And then they called me in, they're like, man, you've been standing there for like 2 hours now. You can come in if you want to. And I went in there, got there, and there were vinyls and turntables. I was so happy, and from that day onwards, I just went there and practiced every day, and I think that's where I got that confidence in terms of my DJing ability, where I knew that every day we were practicing. So now the basics of DJing, I know at the back of my head. And now the only thing I can do is work on my creativity, and that's something that I stand out with. I'm not just a track after track type of DJ, but I'm an experimental DJ that looks at the mixer and sees what they can do to enhance my DJing and my DJ sets.
And you started on vinyl.
Yeah, I started on vinyl, man. I played a lot of vinyl, and I saw the transition from vinyl to CDs and from CDs to USBs,
Yeah, so, I was the same way, man. I think that makes you look at a DJ set differently when you have that background.
Yeah. I mean, now things are a bit different, but even if you give me a faulty CDJ, I'll find my way around. Turntables never gave you the option of reading BPMs,
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, man. Yeah. There was, with turntables, I mean, it's so funny to look back now because with what we can do now with CDJs and have mixes be so exact and precise, with turntables, I mean, you could never have 100% perfect mix,
Yeah.
It was always, you could get as close as possible, but it was never going to be perfect. And so the whole thing, it kind of just felt like the whole time you were just trying to hold it together,
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
And that was now fun
DJs
for me.
Now DJs can relax, put your hands up, and look at them, and you're like, bro.
Right.
5-6 cool years
too,
ago.
But yeah.
Yeah, it's quite dope. 10 years ago, you could never do that shit. You'd have to mix and then go look for the next vinyl that you're going to play, put it there, and try to find your next mix. So there was not a lot of time to
Yeah. And if you couldn't put one song down and then decide you want to play a different song, because then you got to take the record off, you got to put it back, you got to dig through again. Yeah. The record that's playing might run out.
It was a mission, man. It was a mission. Now, if a song is running out, you just press the loop button and you have 10 hours of time to mix,
That's right. And did you start performing pretty quickly? Were you doing like local shows or house parties or anything like that?
I think it took me about 2 years before I could confidently go out and DJ. I used to go out and watch a lot of DJs while I was still learning. So that also helped me, but it took me about 2 years for me to be confident.
When did producing music come into the equation? Did you start that pretty young as well?
I got a scholarship from an institute in South Africa called Soul Candy, which had a production course that you'd go on for a year, and then they would teach you things about keys, educate you about the different softwares and what you could do, how to record music, all of those things. So I think the foundation was laid by Soul Candy, but I spent a lot of time with a friend of mine called Cuba, who's a very great producer, and he taught me most of the stuff that I know now on production.
So in all this time, especially when you're young and still a teenager, did you think of music as a career at that point? Did you think this was something you were going to do for the rest of your life? Or were you still looking at it more as kind of, a hobby or a passion or something interesting? Like when did that switch flip for you that music was just going to be the rest of your life?
I've never had any other ambitions of being anything else but a DJ, because I really loved how it made me feel. I really loved how I was looking forward to playing my next gig and going to a practice session and getting more music, and I think that translated in the fact that I won a lot of small DJ competitions when I was still coming up, because of the passion that I had. I'd be the guy with the new music, the new skills, the perfect mixing, because I really put in a lot of effort in making sure that my craft was polished, to the point where even local taverns started recognizing me and started booking me for as little as I don't know in dollars how much. Like maybe $1.
Yeah,
$1.
yeah.
$1 is 10 rand. $10. Yeah.
$10, yeah.
$10 is like $100. I would play for that, and investing that money back into buying vinyls. We had a lot of record shops in South Africa, and I just kept on investing and investing and investing because something in my brain just said, as good as you are and the way people like you, there is something that you can work on, that you can live off, but I never made it about money, but taking each step as building a foundation towards the bigger goal.
I mean, that's really impressive, I think, at a young age to have that mindset, and to even the words you just used, you said you would invest and invest. Whereas when I was 15, I probably would have just said, oh, I just want to get more records. I wouldn't have thought about it in those terms. Have you always been that way, sort of with that ambitious mindset, that business mindset? Like, where does that come from for you?
Sure. I don't know, man. I think it's just the drive of really knowing what I want, and going for it, which is something that I use till today, where I'm like, okay, we want to start a festival. Okay, sharp. How do we do it? How do we get people to the stadium? Are we at the right stadium?
Yeah.
Like, we need 5,000 people minimum. How do we get those people? I've always been that goal and targets, and aiming for those targets and going for them, and that's what has helped me.
Do you think that, well, first of all, I mean, what did your parents think of your goals at that young age? Were they cool with you just shooting for music sort of right out of the gate?
I was raised by a single parent. I was raised by my mom because my dad passed on when I was like 7.
Okay.
Yeah, my mom is a teacher. She's retired now, but she was a teacher, and obviously for her it's like school first and then everything else follows. So I had to make sure that making the decision to putting the music before school would work for me, because if it didn't work out, then I'd be in serious problems,
Yeah.
But I think she started seeing how serious I was when I started winning those competitions, and when I could actually tell her that, ma'am, I'm trying to do this diploma in marketing, but I think I've gotten the basics of what I need from this diploma. Once they started speaking about statistics and graphs and all of those things, I was like, no, I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, I had the pressure to just make sure that this thing works, because I had no other plan, man. Like I really wanted to be a DJ. It's like even now, I do have my businesses that I run now, which were predominantly done because I had money that I was making from my DJing. But when I look at my international career, like breaking into the US and into Europe properly, I know that there's a lot of sacrifices that I need to make, and hopefully if the hard work pays out, then I know that if I'm going to earn as much as how much other DJs are earning in that space, I'd be good for life, but it's all about the investment now and putting in the work now that will determine how far you go.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great perspective, man. And let's talk about how that started to build to the point where you could start, playing outside of South Africa, playing for, different crowds, different people, different countries. So you won these competitions and you started to get known locally. And I'm sure you started playing some local shows, maybe traveling around regionally in South Africa. Was there a moment? Was there like one moment where you sort of leveled up and everything got bigger? Or was it a kind of slower, like organic growth over time that got you to the point where you were, touring and leaving the country and becoming known on that level?
That slow trajectory is something that I'm proud of,
Yeah.
like I'm not frowning upon people that have overnight success. We all have different paths in the world, but the fact that I know the struggles from grass level, like root level, actually, not even grass level, root level, where I know that I need to carry my vinyls and walk like 5Ks to go to a gig, and then starting to get people transport you, and then working towards getting your own car, and then getting your first car, and then driving 1,000 kilometers for a gig because someone wanted you in a different province, to them booking you a flight, and then to you being a frequent guy that's doing gigs and using flights and having those fragile stickers on your vinyl bag. And then, and then from there, you like, now I travel business class locally, and then you've got your first gig outside of, like, it's just I've had this foundation, man, in my career that I think was so important for me, because I really appreciate where I am today. I don't take it for granted because I know where I come from,
Do you remember what was the first show you played outside of South Africa?
I played in Swaziland, which is it's in South Africa, but it's
no, but still, that's a separate country, man. Yeah, that counts.
Yeah. It was Swaziland, and then I did Lesotho, and then it was.
That must have been so exciting, man. I mean, do you remember what it felt like when you really started to travel for music?
Yeah, man, it felt so good, man. Obviously I was very scared, because you'd find that the people that are booking you are the ones that know about you, but they are exposing you to a market that you're not exposed to,
right?
That people don't even know about you. So when you walk in there, it's like, oh, we've heard about this guy that's coming. Who is he and what does he do? And then when you get there, you need to prove yourself, and that's where my experience with my DJing came from. That's where my experience in DJing came in,
right?
Because I would get there and blow people away because of the experience that I had, at a very young age. It was very fun for people to watch someone my age kicking ass like that,
Yeah.
So I grew into that. It built my confidence. And that's why I'll even if you put me after Michael Jackson, bro, like, I'll still play.
I love that.
Yeah.
Did it feel, because I'm trying to think about it, I'm trying to put myself in your shoes, and in the States and in lots of other countries, I think, like, say I go play a show somewhere else, I don't necessarily think that people are looking at me thinking, oh, this is somebody representing America, right? Because there's a million DJs in America. And but from South Africa, I think there are less DJs who are known on that international level, right? Did it feel like, when you started getting out there, did it feel like you were representing South Africa? Like, did you feel that pressure?
Definitely, man. But it was a good thing, because I was probably one of the very few first people that had that opportunity, and you are not playing based on someone else's benchmark. So you like the what do they call it? You like the blueprint,
right,
of what people are going to know your country for. So it was quite dope, because you're introducing people to new music and to a new style of music that they're not really used to, but making sure that you also make sense to them, so that you don't sound too inferior, and you can still keep the dance floor going, which is something that I still do till today, where if I'm going to go to a gig in the US or in Europe somewhere, I check who I'm playing for, and I know my limits where I can take it in terms of our music, but I always have to find that balance in between.
Mm. So you like that pressure, that responsibility.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it, man.
Mm. Do you remember? I'm just curious now. What was the first time you came and played in the States? What was that like?
The first time I played in the States, I was actually on a boat cruise to the Bahamas and the Caribbean, obviously.
Oh, nice.
And that was a prize that I won from a DJ competition that I won back here at home, which was not really the best of gigs, but it exposed me to the other side of the world, to say, oh, okay, so this is the States, this is what's happening,
Right.
And then I had bigger goals now, it's like, okay, I came here because I won a competition, but obviously I didn't play the best gigs ever, I need to work on making sure that I get the right gigs here, and which is something that I've been working on. And then obviously the next time I went to the US was for Miami Music Week,
right.
just to learn and see how people are doing things, which really opened my mind a lot into seeing how the international market works and go for it.
Yeah, I mean, that's really interesting. And I want to know more about sort of when you started traveling, regardless of whether it's the US or anywhere else in the world. What did you take from that? What did you learn from that? Because it was really interesting to me when you mentioned that in South Africa, there's kind of that foundation level of, agents and managers and all of that. It's just, it wasn't there at the start. And I think in the States or in the UK, we're very lucky in that those institutions just exist here. And so it's not something that each person has to build on their own. So for you, when you went out there, what did you learn? What did you take with you? And how did you start putting it together for your own career?
Like I'm saying, I learned that I need to have a team around me, which is something that I also incorporated into my own systems here back at home, to say, okay, I need to have my own office that's dealing with all my stuff, and that put off a lot of pressure on my shoulders to concentrate on the music.
So how did you put that team together? How did you even find the right people?
I interviewed people.
Nice.
I interviewed people, and that's where you really recognize that, I could really run this as a proper business, and when people see that I'm running my things professionally, they'll start taking me seriously. And that's how you grow as a person, but moving over, like going overseas and seeing how things are done, I got to sit down and interview a lot of people that wanted to take me on as a management companies, and obviously I took the right ones that I felt had a more aligned vision to what I'm doing.
And how did you, aside from the business end of things, on the artist end of things, how did you start making connections with the people you've been talking about, people like Luciano, Damian Lazarus, all of that? How did they become aware of you and how did you get in contact with them at the start?
I never knew who Luciano was until my first gig in Ibiza, where I was playing before him. And when that email came in, I was like, what is this Ibiza place? I knew nothing about it. The one that booked me at this Destino place. What is this Destino place? Who is this Luciano guy that I'm playing with, Right. And when I asked around, people are like, bro, like that's a big deal for you, And when I got there, Luciano gave me the most amazing welcome ever. He even gave me his headphones on the day. He really liked my energy and my music because he was listening. And from there on, we just connected as brothers, and ever since then, I've been sending him music. We chat. He's actually doing a remix for me now. And with the other guys, I've never met Damian Lazarus personally. I think I follow him on Instagram. We've never spoken, but I like what he's doing. I like his energy around the South African artists that I've seen him interact with. And I obviously have an agent that deals with my A&R stuff, and he samples all of these guys because he has the email addresses, and we can see from the response from the release how people are reacting to the music,
Right.
And it's quite dope because it then means they themselves know that there's a Shimza from South Africa that exists, and as more people know about you, the more you get booked, the more you get the opportunity to do good things, and one day I think we'll crack it, man.
Oh, absolutely, man. I think you're well on your way. I'm excited to see you do that because I think what I take a lot of value from as a DJ myself is that community of artists. And is that, because these people, once you tour around a lot and, it becomes like a second family. And I'm sure you've had that experience too. It's just one of the nicest feelings. It's like one of my favorite parts is that community,
Yeah, like we said, it's going to happen, but we need to do the right things, so that they also don't feel like they're accepting someone else that's a gimmick or like.
Oh I don't think you're in danger of that, man. Yeah.
Yeah, but we're getting there. We're getting there.
Well, and you mentioned obviously Black Coffee earlier, who I think a lot of people know as a DJ and as a personality. How did you first meet him out in South Africa?
Yeah, we had a common mentor that we had, who's Willy, who's still around. He introduced me to him. And we used to play a lot of gigs together in Alexandra. And then I signed to his label, Solistic Music, and then later on left to start my own company, Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And it's just interesting because I think you're sort of doing now maybe what he did some years ago, which is trying to, uplift younger artists and look for new talent and all of that. Do you know what it is about you that kind of caught his eye?
I think the drive that I had set me apart from a lot of young DJs that were around, and I think the fact that it's the small things, like I don't drink alcohol, I don't smoke, I don't take drugs, I don't do any of those things, and I literally just work on my brand each day, man. Like I'll print t-shirts, I used to do mixtapes. So the effort is what draws me to a lot of people, they're like, this guy is putting in the effort. Let's see where we can help him out, and I take every opportunity that's given to me with both hands and I run with it.
That's great, man. And I mean, that makes me want to ask you about your label, which I know is a new venture for you. And, when you're running your own label now, what do you look for in artists that you want to work with? Are you looking for people with that same kind of drive? Are you looking for a different energy? What attracts you to an artist?
I think the music for me is what we are looking for, because I've come to understand that there are a lot of people that have great music out there and they've got very good production skills, but personality-wise, they don't have the drive to sort of take them to the level that they want to go to. Some people are very reserved and just want to be in studio, and I feel like there's so many of those that are so good in South Africa that don't have the strategies that I told you about earlier, where we can, as a label, say, okay, here's DJ so-and-so from Tembisa as well. He's making great music. Let's take him, profile him through the label, which has a brand like myself, to amplify and introduce him to the world for other people to realize that he's a good artist, and maybe out of that you'll get other things. We're trying so hard to to break a lot of young artists that are quite dope, that we feel are doing the sound that we are doing in South Africa, that we want to be projected overseas. And yeah, man, let's see how much music we can get signed onto international labels and be endorsed by the biggest DJs in the world. There's so much that we can do individually, but as a collective, there is much more that we can do.
That's absolutely right. And I'm glad to hear you say that, man. I think that's something anyone listening or watching needs to hear, is that, you talk this whole time, we've talked about this drive, this ambition of yours, but I love hearing you say that, it's not just about personal fulfillment, right? It's about bringing everyone along with you. And it's about when you bring other people in, you get an even bigger benefit, right?
Sure. That's it, man. And I try and do that as much as I can, because a candle doesn't lose its light from lighting other candles. You can only shine bright as a collective, So we're putting an effort to have as many people in the cycle as possible.
I love that. Yeah. And what about your own music, man? Because you mentioned you've got a new song coming out. I'm sure you're always working on something. You've put out 3 albums, is that right, already?
I only have 1 album. The rest were compilations, and then the others were just EPs that I've released. I've based my career mainly on my DJing than as a producer, because in South Africa, your biggest song can be your biggest nightmare, and I think that goes across the whole world, where you can have a big song which is quite dope, but that can be the song that breaks your career. And
you mean you'd always be trying to beat that song, like once you have a big hit?
You'd be chasing hits.
Yeah.
You'd be chasing hits, and that's a dangerous position to be in, because if you don't crack that hit, people write you off. So I've always put my DJing in the forefront, because if you're known as a banging DJ, people will always book you because you're a banging DJ. But if you're known for being the hit maker, once you stop being the hit maker, they go for the next guy,
Right.
And that's what I've always wanted to do, and I think I caught that quite early, and I managed to escape that cycle, So for now, it's like, how do I make music that will give me access to the scene that I want to be a part of? So I need to make the music that makes sense to how my brand will be perceived when people choose, when festival bookers choose their lineups for their festivals. They must know that, he doesn't have a song as big as Fisher, but when he gets on the decks, that it's going to be a banging DJ set and people will be happy, and that's where I want to be, where I'm not forced to release music. I'll release the music when it makes sense. And you see that working for the likes of, I'm going to go back to your Solomons and your Lucianos, where they don't have huge chart topping songs on Billboard, but their presence is there, and they've got a world that they operate in, which is doing very well for their lives. They're living comfortably, they're charging whatever they want to charge, and people love them, and that's what I want. I want to share memories with people about the great times that we had on the dance floor.
That's beautiful, man. And what I love even more about what you just said is that comes from a place of security and knowing what you want, right? Rather than trying to chase somebody else's version of success, you're trying to chase what's going to make you the happiest.
Definitely. I know I wouldn't be happy chasing hits every day and being forced to be in studio because I want my next hit, I want to be able to just tour and worry about my next DJ set and how I'm going to make that bang,
Yeah.
That's it.
I love that, man. Well, and I mean, as we're kind of wrapping it up here, you're a multifaceted guy, and you do all these different things. I want to know, what's the most fun for you? What's the most exciting thing? What keeps you here?
The fact that I can be different but still have a big impact. That for me pushes me. Like knowing that I'm going to get to Bali and I'll play after a techno house DJ and then go in and present myself the way I am and get accepted and still bang it and still move the dance floor. That for me just keeps me going.
I love that, man. And so before we get out of here, I want to make sure you mentioned it earlier, but your one-man show events that you do. I thought those were a really cool concept. And just for the people who might not know, can you talk a little bit about what the one-man show concept is?
Basically, my one-man show is a show that I started in Tembisa, where I come from, where I'm the only DJ on the lineup, and then I get artists in South Africa to come perform, because in South Africa, the scene is a bit different. You can have a show with you as the headline DJ, but have a hip hop artist coming to perform in the middle of your set or when you take a break, So I created this platform because I understood that for more people to know about me, I could book artists that people want to see, but expose that audience to me at the festival so that they can fall in love with what I do. So I would use the biggest artists in South Africa to draw the crowds to the stadium. And then when they get there, I'd be the only DJ playing the whole time, and they'd be exposed to me more than their favorite artist while they wait for them.
Right.
So that strategy worked for me so much that I ended up being the headline of my own show. I can have a flyer that has my face on it and the show's name, which is One Man Show, and people will come to the show because they trust the brand that I am, and they know that they've had so much fun in the past couple of years with the show. For me, the branding exercise that did for me was quite dope, but also I used that platform that I created, that festival, to feed my community, where on Christmas Day we bus in like about 2,000 kids into a stadium, kids that don't have families to spend Christmas Day with, kids that don't have parents, they were abandoned, and we spend the Christmas Day with them, we cook a Christmas lunch for them, they play around, and then later on we have the festival, which is a festival that raises money to buy school uniforms and school shoes for these kids for the next year, because this show is in December, So for me, it went beyond just being a brand exercise, but a vehicle that I use to have an impact in my community, to say thank you for helping me build that foundation that I have, and this is the little that I can do to plow back into the community that raised me.
I love that, man, and that's something I wish more DJs and more artists that I know would do, is to really turn it back into the community. I think that's a beautiful thing. And yeah, man, this whole conversation, I really enjoyed talking to you, man. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, thank you so much, my brother. Thank you so much.
I want to ask you one more question, and then we'll get out of here. This is the last question. I ask this at the end of each one of these interviews. Just looking for a memory, a moment, a time in your life, could be from any time, when it kind of in a single moment, music really had a deep impact on you, really meant something to you.
Yeah, I think music, when I could revamp my mom's house using money that I made from music, was the turning point for me, where I was like, this woman raised me and I'm doing this for her using money that I'm earning through music. For me, that changed the whole game, and that gave me an extra push to say I could do more.
just following your passion, following your love and that drive and seeing it through, then it turns into something that benefits you and your whole family. I love that, man. That's a great answer.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for doing this, man. I really enjoyed talking to you. I hope once, everything starts going and everyone's traveling again, I hope to run into you somewhere out there.
Yeah, man. I can't wait for that, man. I hope we do run into each other. Thank you so much, Will.
All right. Thank you, man. Take care.
Thanks. Bye. Peace.
Bye. All right, that's the show. Shout out to Shimza. Thanks for coming on the show, man. That was great. I had a blast. For everybody out there listening, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. And don't forget, you got to check out Shimza's new record label, Kunye, as well as his new single, Calling Out Your Name. There's a link in the description of this episode where you can go follow him and keep up to date with everything he's doing. You can follow me as well. Just like always, I'm at Willy Joy or at Back to Back Pod on all social media, or you can hit the link in the description to come join the Back to Back Discord. Come pop in the server, come say hi to me, I will say hi back, and then we will be best friends forever. So look, that's it for this week. That's all I got for you. I hope you're doing well out there. I'm thinking about you guys. I hope you're getting through the end of this year with your health, your happiness, some people you love. And here is a friendly reminder to reach out to those people that you love. Let them know you love them. Check in with them. See how they're doing. You can never, ever do that too much. Nobody ever regretted doing that too much. So I'm going to leave it on that note for this week. I love you guys. Take care of yourselves. Have a good week. And I will talk to you next Tuesday. For Back to Back, this is Willy Joy. Peace.